Leslie Osborne. I'm the Alumni Officer for Students and Young Alumni here at the University of Waterloo. And as you can see on your screen, I just returned from maternity leave, so it's especially nice for me to be able to speak to real adults again. My daughter Reed is almost 10 months old now. All right, so now that I have my proud mom moment over with, I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you today about the Gold on the Go series that we did back in 2015. This was a series of 5 events that we hosted targeted at the university's young alumni. The term GOLD in Gold on the Go speaks to the acronym for our target audience, grads of the last decade. And this is a term we've chosen to define as anyone who received a Waterloo degree in the last 10 years, regardless of their age or type of degree. So when we were designing this series, we did a lot of research to understand who our target audience was. And so the numbers you see on the screen are the result of some of that research. The key piece being that 89% of our target audience was under the age of 35. So keeping that in mind, one of the key characteristics of our target audience was that they were of the generation known for their mentality of what's in it for me, that they wouldn't engage with us unless they understand how that engagement fits into their lives. So given this, we knew we had to demonstrate the value and personal gains to be made by staying connected with the university. We really wanted to show that Waterloo supports their success. So in identifying this as our primary objective, we hoped it would enable them to develop an appreciation for the mutual value in maintaining a relationship with Waterloo. This objective was met by offering alumni the opportunity to enhance their networking abilities in a casual atmosphere during an enjoyable evening out. Attracting a high number of first-time alumni event attendees was also really important to us. And so working with our data team, we were able to produce a list of email addresses for those who had never attended an alumni event before. And we sent this group a special email that concisely explained why a Gold on the Go event would be a great introduction to coming to a university event. So this targeted appeal led us to generate a lot of success, as the average across the 5 events was a 31% attendance rate by these first-timers. So reaching the gold audience was a goal shared by one of the university's affinity partners, the Bank of Montreal, and they were brought on board to be the official event series sponsor. With this sponsorship, we were able to co-brand smartphone business card holders that were in keeping with our focus around networking. Since everyone always has their phone on them, the holders that stuck to the back of these phones allowed them to have a place for the business cards they received during our event. It also enabled BMO to promote their credit cards by inserting a faux credit card into each of the holders we gave away. So I once heard Joe Gabia, who is the founder of Airbnb, speak about what he called Enlightened Empathy and how it really marked a turning point for his company's success. And I think it really translates into our work. So in the context of our work, I see Enlightened Empathy as going out into the world to learn about the point of view of our alumni so it can inform our points of view. So it's not about surveys or any other form of soliciting feedback en masse. It's about going to talk to a handful of your connected alumni and combining their perspective with our own expertise to create something new. And so this is exactly how the Gold on the Go series came to be. In speaking with a lot of Waterloo's alumni, I came to understand that while they knew that having strong networking skills was really important, the idea of networking was very daunting to a lot of them. The idea that they had to go boast about themselves to relative strangers was, quite frankly, terrifying to a lot of them. So this is why we chose to have the Gold on the Go series very clearly focus on offering alumni the opportunity to learn how to enhance their networking skills and overcome some of these fears. So to teach the attendees how to improve their networking skills, a marketing veteran and former member of our university's Alumni Council was engaged to be the speaker for all 5 of the events. When selecting a speaker, I would recommend looking for somebody who has enough experience to really have the authority to speak about the importance of networking and offer personal examples, but also look for somebody who was young enough to be able to really relate to the current realities of finding a job. So the theme of our guest speaker's presentation focused around the quote that you see on the screen, that in today's world, it's not who you know or what you know, it's what you know and who knows you know it. And I think that's a really simple quote, but yet it's really insightful. So during his presentation, our speaker knew who his audience was, knew their generation, and talked a lot about their universe. And he told them to be very wary of it. He told our audience that he shouldn't talk about themselves so much, which is a trait the demographic is often criticized for. So instead, he told them to be really interested in other people. He also told our audiences to have a plan. He encouraged alumni to consider what they wanted to get out of networking opportunities, to know what they wanted to achieve by going to an event. Finally, he told them a lot about their unique selling proposition, about what makes them unique. And he stressed the importance of being able to sell that brand to others consistently. So the 5 events for Gold on the Go were hosted across Canada and the US in Ottawa, Mississauga, Seattle, and Vancouver. And so these locations were chosen because they were of strategic importance to us. They're areas where we wanted to connect with alumni and contained a high percentage of our Gold alumni. So there were more than 22,000 Gold alumni living in the areas surrounding each of our event locations. And the phrase "on the go" in the series title speaks to the fact that the event series was executed in a span of just 5 weeks and traveled to all of these locations. It was also intended to resonate with our target audience by indicating that the events would have a great energizing energy to them. So when planning these events, we made a really conscious effort to find really unique venues that were a little bit out of the ordinary as a way of adding another layer of appeal to the events. So in Seattle, for example, we chose the largest single malt distillery in the United States. In Kitchener, we chose the former one-room schoolhouse that is now part of Borealis Grill and Bar. So shifting gears to the marketing and branding of the series, it was inspired by a very unlikely source, and that is the British band Mumford & Sons, and in particular, their Gentlemen of the Road tour. And so I'm sorry this slide is a bit jumbled. It was supposed to transition in and things transition out, and instead it's all just on there as one. But the kind of blue and orange badges you see are the Mumford & Sons badges. And the ones you see kind of hiding behind are the ones that we created. And you'll see a better image of those later on in my presentation. So for each event, a badge depicting the iconic local images was designed. So individually, these badges served to brand that particular event. So in Ottawa, the Ottawa badge displays the Peace Tower on Parliament Hill, and that badge was used to market Ottawa. But combined with the others, the 5 badges came together to form a really cohesive brand for the overall Gold on the Go series. So this design allowed us to take a 2-pronged approach to marketing, to promote the overall series as well as each individual event. And this was a really decisive departure from how Waterloo alumni events have been promoted in the past. So in doing this, we were able to appeal to a much larger audience while also showing them the breadth of their alumni network as well as our outreach activities. So finally, keeping the brand consistent throughout all 5 events ensured we only had to create materials once rather than creating materials for each individual event. That was really seen in these tri-folded table cards we designed, that we created one that was used for all 5 events. So one panel of the card depicted all 5 of the event locations, while another highlighted the range of services and perks offered to alumni, and the third talked about a social media contest we had running through the events, and I'll talk to you more about that in a minute. Our 2-pronged approach to branding also translated into our digital content. So what you see in front of you are the web page banners created for each event's registration page, and it clearly depicts that particular event location while also subtly referencing the other 4 event locations with the pins you can see placed on the background map. Of course, there was also a social media aspect to all 5 of our events through the use of screens placed in each event location that displayed live Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook posts that were tagged with the hashtag UWGold. We encouraged our attendees to also take their networking online. So follow each other on Instagram, follow each other on Twitter, that kind of thing. And by posting using the hashtag UWGold, they were eligible to win one of 2 Pebble watches, which is a product that was created by a University of Waterloo alumnus. So one of the main things we did to evaluate the event series was send a really short survey the day after each event, asking the attendees to rate their experience. And it's worth noting that 20% indicated that word of mouth is what really encouraged them to register. So the fact to us that other alumni sought to mention the event series to their peers speaks to the positive impact the marketing and messaging of our event series had. That people went out of their way to tell others really spoke to how well it was branded, in my opinion anyways. And that 81% of our attendees responded they were likely or extremely likely to recommend attending a University of Waterloo alumni event. So finally, in terms of our lessons learned, our no-show rate was slightly higher for the Gold on the Go series than when compared with our general alumni events. And I think a lot of this can be attributed to the generation to our audience. To help reduce this, if we were to do the series again, I would charge a nominal ticket fee, just so people are a little bit more invested when they register to come to the event. Our other lesson learned came from the surveys. So some alumni wish we had offered a structured networking activity following our alumni guest speakers' remarks. And if we were to do this, I would make it optional so that only those guests who feel they needed even more networking support could participate, while others who heard our guest speakers talk could simply go and put what he had taught them into practice. So here is a better shot of all of the 5 badges we created for the events. And so overall, the Gold on the Go series successfully demonstrated to us that Waterloo supports the success of our alumni by offering them the opportunity to enhance skills that were really relevant to them. And in doing so, ensured that alumni developed an understanding of the personal value that was to be gained by maintaining a relationship with the university. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I wonder if anyone has any questions for me.
The conference has been unmuted.
I just unmuted the line, so anyone who may have been on the phone and wants to ask a question, you are now free to. You can also ask slightly in the chat box if you are available.
Emily, this is Janet. I'm wondering what your plan is going forward to either expand on this or do something different carrying on with the same theme.
So actually, Janet, while I was on maternity leave, they did produce another series that was in Calgary, Toronto, and Waterloo, and they engaged a new guest speaker who talked about her experiences with networking, but obviously she had a different experience and different background. Going forward from that, ideally we would like to take it to Asia. The University of Waterloo has a lot of alumni who are in Asia, and so that's kind of our next step in terms of looking at the Asia market, making sure that networking is still what they would want to focus on. If not, looking into what other value add we could put in the event series that would really fit with what that audience needs.
Great.
Perfect. We do have a question from the chat box. What is the we have two questions. What is the average cost per event, and what did the affinity partner provide in terms of sponsorship?
So to answer the first part, our budget per event for the event costs was $6,000, and we came in under budget on every single event. In terms of travel, we covered the cost of our speaker's travel, so his accommodations and flights. We didn't pay him for his time, and I think our budget for that was $15,000, and we came in right at $15,000. In terms of what our affinity partner provided us, they provided us with the funds to create those smartphone business card holders, and their logo was on those, as well as mentions in our emails and on the tri-folded table card sign that you saw a few slides before.
Okay, and just as there's another question that we have that's queued up. What were the attendance numbers of the various events?
Yeah, so they varied quite a bit. For the series as a whole, for the all 5 events, we had 250 alumni come out. In places like Seattle, that was a market we had never really been in before, but we realized we needed to be in. So for that event, I think we had about 30 people in the room. So not a ton, but a great first step in building relationships and getting those alumni used to engaging with the university. In Kitchener, on the other hand, which is kind of the next city over from where the university is, there was almost 100 people in the room. So it varied a lot based on the market and how often we had been engaged in that market before. But that was part of our intention of choosing places like Seattle, knowing that down the road our development officers and whatnot would want to be in that market, so helping them cultivate the relationships early, getting people, like I said, engaged with us early on.
Great. From the onset, had you set attendance goals, and so did the numbers meet or surpass what you had put out?
Typically, we don't set specific attendance numbers, but overall, we were very happy with the attendance numbers, and I especially think Seattle, not knowing what kind of turnout we would get, not knowing how receptive the alumni would be, we were really happy with the results we've gotten, and we've subsequently seen some of our specific faculties go out there and have really good responses from the events that they've hosted.
Right, perfect. So just as a reminder to folks on the line, all phone lines have been unmuted, so if you have a question, you are free to vocalize it. However, there's also the chat box component. There's a question that is populated. Was there any kind of philanthropy component or ask in the event?
There wasn't. And that was partly a conscious decision on our part of a lot of our young alumni graduate, and when we ask them what they think their relationship with Waterloo is going to be like as an alumnus, they say, "You're going to ask me for money." And that's all they think about, and that's all they know. And so we wanted to kind of break down that stereotype and say, you know, staying connected with us has value to you. We want to help you be successful, and we really wanted that to be the focus of the event series, and not kind of have them refer back to that negative of, oh, you're just going to call and ask me for money.
Okay. Do you think moving forward that you may incorporate some sort of ask or action item from them?
Absolutely. Funny enough is when we were doing this event series, our alumni and development teams here at Waterloo were completely separated, and since I've come back, we've been merged into one with the real kind of strategic priority of making sure that there is a way to engage these alumni and have them have a philanthropy ask that's not going to have such negative connotations as it has in the past.
Perfect. Any other questions? I don't have any questions queued up in the chat box right now. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to pose? We'll give folks a quick moment if they're mid-typing.
Emily, I just wonder how this fits into your overall young alumni strategy. Could you sort of share with us something about your recent alumni or grads of the last decade strategy overall?
So I'm fairly new to my role, and I would say that this is kind of our first piece to developing and figuring out what that strategy really looks like. For me, and the research I've done and the talking I've done with our alumni, it's really about us figuring out how we can help them be successful. It's really figuring out what resources, what programming we can put in place that, you know, attracts them back to staying connected with the university. So a next probably big thing will be us looking at conversations around mentorship in terms of a lot of our alumni from Waterloo are very entrepreneurial and want to start their own companies, but they're looking for that mentorship from more seasoned alumni, I guess, if you will, who have kind of been there, done that kind of thing. So it's still really, I want to say, almost in its infancy, but growing quickly.
Great, thank you.
We do have a new question that's come up in the chat box. Did your demographics skew towards a certain age or specific faculty?
In terms of the demographics of our attendees, yes and no, kind of in a way. Waterloo is a very heavy STEM school, so our faculties of engineering or math are just, they graduate more alumni, so we automatically see more of those faculty alumni come to our events. In terms of age, it was a real broad group of that 20 to 35 demographic, which actually surprised me. I kind of thought it would be the younger end of the grads of the last decade group, but it was really the kind of whole spectrum of that last decade.
And in terms of faculty?
Like I said, in terms of faculty, just by the nature of who our alumni are, we tend to see more engineering and math alumni at our events, just because that's the bigger group of who our alumni pool is composed of.
Right. Any other questions in the chat box?
I'm happy to also take questions via email, or my phone number is also on the screen if anyone thinks of anything after the fact that they want to connect with me on. I'm happy to do that.
Much appreciated. Unless another question, we'll give it another moment or two if anybody has a question that they're mid-typing. So before we adjourn for today, Emily, just to kind of ask you, if another institution were to employ a concept similar to this, however, they may not have those resources or that $15,000 line item budget for presenter costs or whatnot, do you have any suggestions of, what are those have-to-haves in a campaign such as this?
I think it's the value add of the what's in it for the alumnus to come out. It's not enough for this demographic anymore to come out to an event, to have a free drink. The kind of warm and fuzzy events are, to me, not appealing to them. They have to get something out of it. So figure out what that value add is for them personally, really hone in on it, and market it to that demographic as that you come to this event, you will leave knowing this, getting this, that kind of thing.
Okay. So if there are no questions over the phone, and there's nothing queued up in the chat box, I have my eyes on it. It seems to be all right. So thank you, Emily, very much for your time and for sharing this with us.
My pleasure.
Perfect. A reminder to all those on the line, Emily's coordinates are on the screen in front of you. So should you have any questions that may arise once the session is adjourned, feel free to take her up on an invitation for a consultation or ideas. You can get in touch with your phone and email. This is also being recorded, so if you have anything that you'd like to revisit or perhaps share with someone within your shop, feel free to contact either myself or our admin at CCAeCanada.org email address, and we will be able to share that with you. So once again, thank you very much for taking part today. We are happy to have been able to share this with you, and once again, we wish you all a wonderful afternoon, and